going crazy.
Hey, yo, Q. Give him some of the vibes, too. Yeah.
My mind, but I don't got a lot of time to express myself. No, I see a lot with these eyes. That put a lot on my mind, but I don't care what dress it. I'll do best just to mind my business. Mind my business. Mind my business. I'll do best just to mind my business. Mind my business. Mind my business. On it or cry about it, I'm hard about it. I got my issues, but I don't trust y'all to even talk about it. Don't speak to me about nobody, please don't. I do best when I mind my business. These niggas got some more than some of these women. They feminine, but I ain't tripping. Cause what they eat don't make me shit. They cool, it just ain't none of my business. How they roll, how they I got a lot of bullshit to process and deal on my mind, but I don't got a lot of time to express myself. No, don't be wasting my time. I see a lot with these eyes that put a lot on my mind, but I don't care to address it. I'll do best just to mind my business, mind my business, mind my business. I'll do best just to mind my business. Can't seem to get enough or give two fucks about him or her. I'm out the way as long as they don't speak on me and what I'm doing. I'ma keep it P and keep on moving. Can't look back what I'm pushing for. It's the only way to see what's important. If I sound rude, I'm sorry. No, I don't mean no harm. Just gotta keep my focus on the shit I control. So what they do don't matter. Let them folks live their life and stay about their business. It's time to mind your business. On my mind, but I don't got a lot of time to express myself. I see a lot with these eyes that put a lot on my mind, but I don't care. Dress it, I don't care. I do just best to my mind. My business, my business. I do best just to mind my business.
Make my He waiting for people to get up in the building.
Well, how does it feel to know you tried all
Make sure
you
y'all
could,
hitting that like as you come in the door and tell
but
us.
I didn't fail. It didn't turn out like it should. You know I love it when you hate on me. You know I love it when you hate on me. Well, how to know you tried or you could, but I didn't fail. It didn't turn out like it should. You know I love it when you hate on me. You know I love it when you hate on me. Go on, some hate on your words when you speak on me. All that hating that you won't bring out the best in me. You can't stop my emotion. God's got plans for me. That's why I'm winning, even though you didn't climb me. For me, thank the Lord, I didn't need your support to to see victory. Now don't get me wrong, bring you down. They will. But I ain't gon' hold you when they hate on me. All they do is make me smile. Yeah. I love it when you hate on me. You know I love it when you hate on me. Don't want it, hate on me. Well, how does it feel? To know you tried all you could. Know you tried. But I didn't fail. No. It didn't turn out like it should. You know I love it. If they don't like me, that's cool. I don't really need them to know. I don't need. See, it ain't them I'm trying to impress. I do this for me and my family. Yeah. They talk down on Jesus, why would they spare me? Yeah, haters gon' hate. You would swear they get paid to throw dirt on your name. Ain't it a shame? How does it feel to know you tried all you could? You should be ashamed, but I didn't fail. It didn't turn out like it should.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm late. I know I'm late. I apologize. Car gave out of gas. I had a flat tire. I got locked out. Now I'm playing. Now what happened was I couldn't sleep and then passed out in the early AM. And did it again yesterday, day before yesterday and yesterday. So that's my bad. I apologize. It's a lot of paperwork, y'all. It's a lot of paperwork. This document right here is the transcript from the bail hearing. You see it's on 7 of 57. I read through the first 6 pages or so because all of that's, the have you been read your rights and why's they school. So we got to condense it a little because I have to read this out. Yes. I have to read it out. So I condensed that part a little. It condensed the part I could condense, which is the beginning, which is just a synopsis. You have been charged with X, Y, and Z. How do you plead? Not guilty. Right here is, hey, Maximum. This right here, judge was telling the prosecution that you have to, be forthcoming with all evidence and so forth and so on. That's why there's only 3 counts to this indictment so far, because the prosecution has more. They're still investigating. We're going to start with this one and we might flip to one of the other ones. Excuse me. Hi. Give me a sec. Did this before I went live, but I wasn't thinking about it. Hold on. Allergy Max to the rescue. Eye drops on deck. Preemptive strike. Guess who's going to jail this time? In jail. He ain't getting no bail. I told Jaded earlier because I had to hit Jaded up. We was talking anyway, but while we was talking, I hit him up for a thumbnail. I told him, I said, all this mess Hassan talking about Bam and being greasy, that's Diddy. walking around looking extra moisturized. So this last part where it cuts off from page, it says 6 right here, but then it's printed, it says 7 of 57. That's the weirdness of PDF documents. Okay, but the judge is telling the prosecution that they have with any new evidence, any new witnesses, they understand. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me good. Do I need to jack my volume up a little bit? Do I need to turn it down a little bit? Are y'all good? Let me know something. Thine Diddler on the Roof by Sean P. Diddy Combs. Let's get it started. The court at a conference date. Miss Johnson, yes, he has, Your Honor. It is next Tuesday, September 24th at 11 a.m., 10 a.m. I'm sorry, Your Honor. The court at 10 a.m. Okay. Is there a request to exclude time? Miss Johnson, yes, Your Honor. The government would move to exclude time between today and the conference date of next Tuesday. Such an exclusion of time would justice because it would allow the parties to begin discussing in the protective order and the like before we see the district court that day. The court, okay, does the victim consent? Does the defendant consent? My bad. Mr. Agnafilo, we do, Your Honor. Okay, so Mr. Agnafilo, I might not be saying his name quite right. Maximum. It wasn't just baby oil. It was baby oil. 1,000 bottles between them. For those of you that don't know, Mr. Agnafilo and his law firm are the ones representing Diddy. That's one. Number 2, Mr. Agnafilo has tried a case like a defendant, been the lawyer for a defendant for a case like this before, a cult leader. I can't remember. He has at least 2 of the same charges that Diddy does. And that man is currently serving a 120-year prison sentence, and he had a $1.75 million fine. So let's keep it going. The court. Okay, so with the agreement of the parties, I will exclude time through and including September 24, 2024. I find that the ends of justice served by taking this action outweigh the interests of the public and the defendant in a speedy trial. Take it there is no agreement regarding release pending. Ms. Johnson, correct, Your Honor. The court. Okay, then we will have a detention hearing. On what basis is the government seeking detention? The government is seeking detention on multiple bases. The indictment alleges a violation of 18 United States Codes, Section 15, and that's a basis under 18 United States parentheses F parentheses 1 parentheses A. The indictment also charges a crime for which the maximum sentence is life imprisonment or death. That is 18 United States Code 3142 parentheses F parentheses 1 parentheses B. The government is also moving under 18 United States Code 3142 parentheses F parentheses 2 parentheses A. That is the serious risk of flight, and 18 United States Code 3142 parentheses F parentheses 2 parentheses B, which is a serious risk that the person will obstruct or attempt to obstruct justice or threaten, injure, or intimidate, or attempt to threaten, injure, or intimidate a prospective witness or juror. hold on. I think I need to. It gives Nature Boy vibes. It gives York vibes. It gives York vibes. Remember when we were reading over those transcripts before? Maybe we should go. Oh yeah. In the next week or so, probably towards the beginning of next week, Chuck is gonna come on. I'm excited. We back to Milwaukee and hunting. Miss Johnson, okay, yeah, I already read that. No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. The court. Okay, and is this a presumption case? Miss Johnson, it is, Your Honor. The court. Okay, and why is that? Miss Johnson, detention is presumed under the Bail Reform Act because the defendant is charged with X trafficking, which is an offense under Chapter 77 of Title 18, and the site for that is 18 United States Code 3142, parenthesis E, parenthesis 3, parenthesis D. The court. Okay, thank you, counsel. So I am required under the law to release you either with or without conditions imposed, unless I determine that there are no conditions that will reasonably assure your appearance in court as required and the safety of the community. Keep that in mind, y'all. In this case, the government has asked that you be detained without bail, and they are entitled to make that request because the government contends that you present a serious risk of flight and obstruction of justice, and because of the nature of the charges against you, which include sex trafficking and a crime for which the maximum sentence is life imprisonment or death. So we are having a bail hearing, and I have to determine whether there are any conditions, any combination of conditions of release that will protect the safety of the community, ensure your appearance. In making this determination, I am required to consider several factors, including the nature of the charged offense, including whether there are crimes of violence charged, crimes involving firearms, controlled substances, the weight of the evidence, and your history and characteristics, which include character, physical and mental condition, family ties, employment, financial resources, length of residence in the community, community ties, past history of substance abuse, criminal history, and proceedings. I have also have to consider the nature and seriousness of any danger to any person in the community that would be posed by release. Because this is a presumption case, because you are accused of one of several specified crimes, there is a presumption that no conditions of release will reasonably ensure the safety of the community. But because if there is probable cause to believe that you have committed certain enumerated offenses, including sex offenses, there no conditions of release will reasonably ensure your appearance, but the presumption is rebuttable, and the government bears the burden of establishing by clear and convincing evidence that you are a danger to the community, or establishing by a preponderance of the evidence that you are a risk of flight. I will now hear from counsel. First, I would like to hear from the government as to why it believes that that detention is warranted. Okay, so let me go to the chat. Ain't nobody got nothing to say yet? Can y'all hear me still? Put a one in the chat if you can hear me, because the browser did blank out. So I don't want y'all to be sitting up here and there's no sound. Somebody let me know something. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Miss Johnson, Your Honor, the defendant Sean Combs physically and sexually abused victims for decades. He used the vast resources of his company to facilitate his abuse and to cover up his crimes. Simply put, he is a serial abuser and a serial obstructor. To Your Honor, the government is seeking detention that pretrial services has reached in its report after interviewing the defendant. The government submits that the defendant should be detained pending trial because he is an extreme danger to the community. He poses a serious risk of obstruction of justice, which also makes him a danger to the community, and he poses a serious risk of flight because now he's facing significant charges, some with mandatory prison time. As Your Honor mentioned, detention is presumed here. It's the starting point, and it's the defendant's burden to which the government respectfully submits that the defendant cannot do here. The government is going to respectfully request that the court enter an order of detention. As the court knows, the government submitted a detailed letter to Your Honor this morning outlining the facts and basis for detention, so I will highlight some of those here. The facts are set forth in detail in the letter, but in short, the defendant used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause female and sexual activity with male commercial ex. These were elaborate sex performances that the defendant arranged, directed, pleasured himself during, and often electronically recorded. They began at least in and around 2009, lasted through at least this year, 2024, and often took place over multiple days and involved more than one commercial ex-worker. These freak-offs were enabled and associates of his enterprise who set up the hotel rooms, arranged travel for victims and ex-workers, and delivered bulk cash and narcotics to the hotel rooms, among other tasks. And those narcotics that were delivered or stocked in the room were used at least in part so that female victims could continue to participate in freak-offs despite exhaustion and fatigue from these events happening for sometimes multiple days. The defendant was violent inside. At least a dozen witnesses who we have spoken to will confirm that they personally observed the defendant's violence towards women or injuries sustained by female victims as a result of his violence. Yeah, Maximum, and his lawyer is not doing a good job at all. To this violence directed toward women, the defendant, he committed other physical assaults against other individuals, and with the assistance of members and associates of his enterprise, he committed kidnapping and he committed arson. The defendant also surrounded himself with and used firearms. Those include the 3 defaced AR-15s that the government seized from his residences in March of 2024. One of those was found in his residence in Los Angeles. 2 were found in his Miami. These were loaded with ammunition. And in Los Angeles, we also seized a high-capacity drum magazine that was loaded with 60 rounds of ammunition. And all of those AR-15s I just mentioned had the serial numbers bored through, so they were defaced. And as if that were not enough, Your Honor, what sets this case apart from so many others and what makes this defendant even more dangerous is the defendant's extensive and exhaustive history of obstruction of justice. The indictment charges acts of bribing as predicate offenses for the charged racketeering conspiracy. And just like the violence I outlined, the defendant and his co-conspirators have engaged in years-long efforts to cover up the defendant's crimes and to tamper with witnesses. So to get a sense of what I am talking about, I want to use one example to the court, and that example is March 5th, 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. The government attached to its submission this morning a video clip that had previously been by the media in or about May of this, critical to understanding both the physical danger of the defendant and the obstruction efforts that he goes to. It is a recorded example of his use of force in connection with a freak-off. And when we get to the end of this example, the defendant was eventually forced to acknowledge that he, in fact, is the individual featured in that video, despite multiple previous denials that this incident occurred. So in short, the evidence would show this. Off at the Intercontinental Hotel, the defendant violated the victim who was trying to leave the hotel room and was walking down the hall to the elevators. He punched her. He threw her to the ground. He kicked her. He attempted to drag her back to the hotel room, and then later he threw a vase at her. And it's after this assault that the cover-up started. After the victim managed to leave the hotel, or pardon me, when the hotel security was helping the victim leave the hotel, the defendant, the hotel security officer with that officer's silence. That security guard, however, refused to be bought. Next, the defendant directed his staff to contact the hotel security staff in an apparent effort to obtain the surveillance video that recorded every moment of that assault that I just described. And as Your Honor can see on Exhibit A to our letter from this morning, these same employees of the defendant were in contact with the victim at the same time to ensure that she would stay quiet and she would. And within days of that March 5th, 2000, the surveillance video disappeared from the hotel server. That's just not a coincidence. That is a result of the defendant's efforts to obtain it through his staff members. And the cover-up of that incident continued for nearly another 8 years, 7 years. I apologize, Your Honor. Jaded. Yeah, Maximum, but sitting up here talking about that was Heather. What is people pushing Ike and Tina kind of love now? No. Right, Maximum. Look, this dude is ice skating around getting disbarred. Hey, Khalil. I'm silent for a moment to let that sink in, because this is a lot to take in. 57 pages. We on page 14. A civil suit was filed in mid-November 2023 that, among other allegations, detailed this assault at the Intercontinental. The defendant issued a public response to that lawsuit, which I will quote. I did not do any of the awful things. The defendant released an even more strident response where he denied, quote, offensive and outrageous allegations and described the lawsuit as, quote, riddled with baseless and outrageous lies. These are unequivocal of the defendant's participation in this incident. This happened in November of 2023. And these denials are also further attempts by him to obstruct justice and prevent the truth of this event from being known. Hold on for a second. Let me check my phone. Thought I got a message or something. So fast forward to May of 2024, when this surveillance video is obtained by the media and publicized. It is only then, only when there is indisputable proof caught on video and published to the world, that the defendant admitted that he was involved in this assault. The sequence of events makes crystal clear that you cannot take the defendant at his word. You cannot believe him when he denies his criminal conduct. He lies to cover things up. And make no mistake, March 5th, 2016 is just one incident of violence and obstruction that we have investigated and would prove. This investigation has yielded evidence of numerous assaults against female victims and other individuals. These assaults include choking, hitting, kicking, and dragging victims, often by their hair. The investigation has yielded, which I will talk in a little bit more detailed evidence of these freak-offs, communications, hotel records, witnesses, and videos. So this is the kind of conduct I am talking about when I argue that the defendant is a danger to the community. This freak-off activity is core to this case. It's a way of controlling female victims' lives, method of using physical force against them, all to compel them to engage in sex acts that the defendant wants. A long history of violent conduct makes clear that conditions will not support the safety of this community. The danger inquiry is focused on danger to any real person, and the evidence shows that the risk of danger in this case is acute. The risk of danger is acute towards victims, towards some of the defendant's staff, towards others, and towards other witnesses. His past assaults have caused significant injuries and required periods of physical individuals. What's takes place behind doors typically. It typically takes place in settings that are not easily monitored by even stringent conditions of release. And the investigation has further showed that this defendant's violence was both premeditated but often spontaneous, and the spontaneity exacerbates the difficulty of crafting conditions of release. It's very difficult to ensure the safety of any person when the defendant has the propensity to become violent. No bail conditions can address that. Right, Maximum. Exactly. Yo, I was pulling PESA documents last night. I think I've gotten up to like $12 on there. So anybody case is going to be going on for a while, and as long as it's active. So anybody that wants to contribute, thank you for your contribution. If you don't hit nothing but the like button, I thank you for that too. Every little view helps. Yes, it does. It's this long-standing pattern of abuse that is really critical here, Your Honor. This pattern has been entirely undeterred by over a decade by threats of public exposure and enforcement intervention of whether the defendant will continue to act the way he has done for the past few decades. And the risk of obstruction is also incredibly significant. The defendant's power gives him a unique ability to influence and intimidate witnesses and victims. Witnesses we have interviewed have universally expressed their fear of the defendant. His influence makes it extremely difficult to convince people that they will be safe from his actions. And evidence like the March 5th, 2016 incident that I just outlined makes it clear that the defendant is willing to minimize and to lie about his conduct. Is not the only incident of obstruction in this case. Following the November civil suit that I mentioned, the defendant and his co-conspirators continued their efforts by reaching out to potential victims and witnesses. This outreach has included several different types of contact. The defendant himself has contacted witnesses, including those who received grand jury subpoenas from the government in this case. And that contact has offered of testimony or meetings with the government and who hadn't spoken to the defendant in years prior to this reach out. The defendant also directly contacted at least one victim, which I will circle back to momentarily. This constant contact with witnesses is important to understand, and so just one example from this past week is illustrated. On September 10th, which is 1 week ago, Dawn Richard filed a civil complaint detailing abuse she experienced and observed from the defendant, and the allegations in Ms. Richard's complaint overlap in time period with the events charged. Several days later, on September of a band that Miss Richards had been in with the defendant, an individual named Kalina Harper released a statement that, in sum and substance, denied that she saw some of the same things that Richards' complaint alleges. And so where does the defendant's contact come in? Well, in between September 10th, the date of the filing of the lawsuit, and September 14th, the day after the public statement by Ms. Harper, the defendant and Ms. Harper had 128 total phone contacts. That's witness tampering. That's witness tampering. In between September 10th and September 14th, the defendant and Miss Harper had 128 total phone. He called this girl 128 times in 4 days. Mm-hmm. You right, Malcolm. The defendant called or texted Miss Harper 58 times in 4 days. There hasn't been any contact since. So he sat up there and talked her into made the statement. He didn't talk to her no more. Ah, my head hurt. Ain't it though, Khalil? This incident is just one way of making clear that this defendant has the ongoing ability, even witnesses who might have been around, in his pocket and at his disposal. Some of the ways in which the defendant contacts victims and witnesses are also chosen deliberately to avoid detection. Occasionally, intermediaries are used to reach out to individuals. In one case, the reach out to the victim I mentioned earlier, that communication was recorded on another individual's cell phone. It's ways like this that make this obstruction incredibly difficult to detect. And from our investigation, we know what's happened on some of these calls. We know that at least one purpose is to spread false narratives and to get witnesses on his side. And by gaslighting them into making them think that something happened. That the calls with the victim that I mentioned, there are 2 calls. This victim is financially supported by the defendant, and 2 calls are recorded. The defendant asks for the victim's support and friendship and attempts to convince the victim that she had willingly engaged in X acts with him. In this call, the defendant ensures that the victim that if she continues to be on his side and provide support and friendship, worry about anything else, which is just a thinly veiled financial support. And that call happened, I believe, 3 days. Sorry, those 2 calls happened 3 days after the filing of that November lawsuit. So in sum, this long history of obstruction and violence demonstrates that the defendant simply cannot overcome the presumption that no condition or combination of conditions can ensure the safety of the community. And I will note that, at least with respect specifically, courts have denied or revoked bail circuit. For example, United States versus LaFontaine, 210 F 3 D 125, Second Circuit 2000. At page 134, that's where bail was revoked when the defendant contacted a potential witness and attempted to feed that witness a false narrative with the hope that the witness would adopt it as her own testimony. Maximum. Right. 20. Whew. And I will note that, at least with respect to obstruction specifically, courts have denied. Oh, I read that part. And this case is truly in the heartland of detention cases of this magnitude and this similar charge conduct. I will just briefly review some similar cases. R. Kelly in the Eastern District of New York was also charged with racketeering and X trafficking. He was detained on all three grounds: danger, obstruction, and risk of flight. Like this case, there was a pattern of obstruction that had occurred. Case, the actual abuse that was alleged was violent, and this district was charged with X trafficking and detained on dangerousness, obstruction, and risk of flight grounds. In that case, the charged conduct was much less recent, and so was the obstruction, yet nevertheless, Jeffrey Epstein was detained on those grounds as well. Keith Raniere in the Eastern District as well, also charged with racketeering and trafficking. Again, detained on all three grounds. While in that case was serious, not personally committed by Raniere, but the court still found that the defendant was a danger to the community. And finally, I will turn to risk of flight. Flee changed substantially when he was arrested last night. Those incentives are markedly different today than they were yesterday, and his risk of flight is much more significant and much more pronounced. He is now charged with serious offenses carrying significant, in some cases, mandatory terms of imprisonment. And as I will get to next, that evidence is strong and the possibility of a substantial sentence is one factor to be weighed in assessing risk of flight. He's also charged with crimes that are highly sensitive and that risk serious reputational harm to him. And it's the same things that he has spent the last decade trying to sweep under the rug and trying to be a wealthy man. You can see that in the pretrial services report. It's also widely known. That wealth allows him the ability to flee quickly and without detection should he so choose. His counsel have taken steps during this investigation to minimize flight risk. They have taken his passport, attempted to sell his jet, and reported his locations and travel to the government. All of those things have been to set them up for the argument here today and to be able to say that he is not a flight risk. Done when his incentives were entirely different. And as the defendant did fly to New York 2 weeks ago at his counsel's advice and has been living in a hotel in the city for the past 2 weeks, waiting potentially for his arrest. So instead of fleeing from the district, he came to the district. But while he is sitting in a hotel room waiting to be arrested on federal charges at a time when he should be on his very, very best behavior, he had what appears to be narcotics at his hotel room that was found after his arrest last night. Boom. Maximum. Results are not yet conclusive, so I don't test results. But there are bags of pink powder that are visually similar to bags of pink powder that we have seized before from the defendant that have tested positive for ecstasy and other drugs. So just one quick note on the defendant's proposed bail package. My focus in the argument now is on detention because, as I mentioned, this really is a heartland detention case. I am happy if the court has questions to address my concerns in more detail, but from the defendant's bail package is woefully alone, and there is not a proposed condition that addresses many of the concerns of danger and obstruction. And in fact, the government submits that there is no way to successfully curtail the type of obstruction that the defendant has been engaging in here. So let's go. Hold on, my mama calling me. Hello? I'm still in Mississippi. We should be leaving out like tomorrow. Yeah. I'm almost done, y'all. Yeah, I'm back. My bad, y'all. I had to take that real quick. Hold on 1 second. I forgot to close the door. You say he round remodeling Fingali holes. I ain't with y'all today. Ooh, why is it brother, why are you being like that? Computer acting silly. Make sure my teeth are green, not yellow. Maximum, you wildin', bruh. Oh Lord. Okay. So far we're on page 23. My bad about the interruption, but that was my mom and I had to take that because it was important. So finally, just a note on the strength of the government's evidence, which is another factor that the court may consider in its decision. The government has spoken to over 50 witnesses, many of whom have personally witnessed the defendant's abuse or seen signs of it. The government has sworn out multiple search warrants for cloud accounts, for electronic devices, and for the defendant's person and premises. The government has received voluntary productions of electronic evidence from co-conspirators, victims, and witnesses. Some of these searches have yielded an incredible amount of electronic evidence. Over 90 cell phones, laptops, and cloud storage accounts, as well as 30 other electronic and storage devices, such as hard drives, thumb drives, cameras, and a surveillance system. We seized physical evidence from the defendant's residences, the guns, the ammunition, and the extended magazine I mentioned, and other evidence corroborates the victim's account of the freak-offs. We also obtained documentary evidence from over 300 grand jury subpoenas that have been issued and other voluntary productions. Altogether, this evidence, the electronic evidence, the documentary evidence, and the witness testimony, it is going to be used to prove exactly what we charged in our indictment. And for freak-offs specifically, we have communications about setting up the rooms, communications with male escorts about getting to the rooms, about traveling to the rooms. We have the supplies that were used in the freak-offs. We have hotel records often showing extensive damages and frequently showing reservations made in the names of his employees. And we have videos sometimes of the acts themselves. This is the evidence we will use to prove this case, and it confirms that the defendant is a danger to the community and poses a serious risk to the integrity of these proceedings through his continued efforts at obstruction. Your Honor, for the reasons I have stated here and in our letter, the government respectfully submits that the defendant should be detained pending trial. The court, thank you, counsel. Mr. Agnafilo. Yes, may I use the podium, Your Honor? The court, of course. Mr. Agnafilo, thank you, Your Honor. I am going to address the government's letter and some of the arguments they made in a second, but I want to go through first some things that I think are very important. And the first is this. Something very significant in this case, and for the purposes of what we are all here today to decide, happened on September 5th of this year, about 12 days ago. And as my colleague with the United States alluded to, that's the day that Mr. Combs flew from where he was living in Miami to New York. We had told the government before he left Miami that let me back up for a second. It became apparent to us, because this isn't our first rodeo, that we were getting close to the indictment. We met with the prosecutors and their chiefs, and we left that meeting realizing that an indictment was probably coming down soon. We didn't know if it was a week away, 2 months away, but it was going to be in the fall. That's what it seemed to us. I spoke to my client. I said, my recommendation is that you come to New York. I think less than 20 hours later, he flew to New York. He landed in New York. I told my colleague with the government, just so you know, Mr. Combs is in New York. and I would like the opportunity for him to turn himself in. He has to come to New York to turn himself in. That's why he is here. And if he doesn't turn himself in, just let me know if you want to know where he is. He wasn't hiding. He was in a hotel, and I will tell you, and the case will start. 12 days later, the case is now started. So now we're here because he did the exact opposite of what we see defendants do when they are presenting problems to the court by any means, whether it be risk of flight or danger. But what about the fact that he was still calling witness? You just glossed right over that, huh? You just slid, you just tootsie slide right past that, huh? I can't with them. So we were here because he did the exact opposite of what we see defendants do when they are presenting problems to the court by any means, whether it be flight, risk of flight or danger. He actually came to the district voluntarily. At the time, I don't know if there was an indictment returned or not. It's none of our business, but we didn't know whether there was. He came here to sit it out, to wait. If he had to wait 6 months, he only had to wait 12 days, as it turns out. And it's only the last of many, many steps. You mean the first of many, many steps? I'm confused. Or is it the last because he in a cell so he can only pace now? I don't know. But wait, maybe they raided Diddy bed. Maybe they raided Diddy hotel because there was a drug transaction going on. Did we ever think about that? We got involved in this case. Miss Geragos and I got involved in this case in March of 2024. And I want to go through the government. I thought did a very full job going through parts of their investigation. We have been doing an investigation also. And on March 13th, I reached out to my colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I never met any of them. I don't think they met me. I introduced myself and I said I wanted to talk to them about certain aspects of the case because I had an idea even then where this was going. And I had an idea. And we will take a step back even further. And this is all in the public record by now. A lawsuit was unsealed in November of 2023. It was unsealed for a very short period of time before it was settled. Yeah, 24 hours. But it involves one. It involves an I don't want to get into it because no one is being named, but someone who seems to play a prominent role in the indictment. And so what seemed to me, and I think I was absolutely right, is that the unsealing of this lawsuit and the settling of that case garnered a tremendous amount of public attention. And I concluded that my colleagues with the government read the same newspapers I did of sex trafficking in the civil complaint, which was settled. And by the time we really got wind of it a few months later, the investigation seemed to be in high gear. So I contacted my hold on, wait a minute. Wait a minute. November 2023. You say you joined the case in March 2024. So how you contacting people about a case you ain't even a part of? That makes no sense. Is this attorney senile? What is wrong with him? You talking about we and you? Okay, hold on. We on 27 right now. I'm finna scroll back up. I ain't crazy. March 2024. A lawsuit was unsealed in November of 23. I concluded that my colleagues with the government read the same newspapers I did and saw that there was talk of sex trafficking in this civil complaint, which was settled and started an investigation. And by the time we really got wind of it a few months later, the investigation seemed to be in high gear. Dude, when the investigation was in high gear, Diddy hired you. I'm confused. Somebody tell me if my logic is wrong. Really, tell me if my logic is wrong right now. All cap, all cap, all cap, all cap. Boy, you know you full of shit. So I contacted my colleagues with the U.S. Searches were on March 24. See, he said he started somebody. Jesus Christ on a motorbike. My brain broke for a second, y'all. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a pause for the cause because this man is just making no sense. Diddy, you ain't getting that. Never. Guard! 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 I had to take a break because my brain broke. Bruh. What is this weird shit? Oh, you suck. I got it. Agnaphilo, psychic lawyer. Diddy. All the other lawyers must have turned you down, bruh. Because he finna lose this case for you magnificently. Couldn't have. I love this for you. I love this for you. Okay, so ain't nobody said that in the chat, so I must not be tripping. Let me check the other chat to make sure. Yeah, I'm not. I must not be tripping. He broke my brain for a minute, y'all. I can't. Like, it really hurts. Why does it hurt so bad? How are you still practicing law? The searches were on March 25th of 2024, and the searches consisted of searches of the residences in Florida, the residents in California, consisted of searches of the residents in Florida and the residents in California. And Mr. Combs was fine with certain members of his family in his plane. They searched him. They got cell phones. They took his passport. They got a lot of different items from the different houses. They got a lot of phones from the different houses, and I will talk about some of that in a second. And that was the day that I first spoke to the prosecutors in that case, and it was apparent to me because I got the search warrants on that day, the identical charges, ones that we have. So when my colleague says that the world changed yesterday, the world really didn't change yesterday very much, because we knew on March 25th we were all where all this was headed, because what was apparent to us based on our conversations with the prosecutors on our review of the search warrant is this was an investigation into racketeering, conspiracy, into sex trafficking, and the violations of the Mann Act, among other things. 3 of those things are now in the indictment, so there's been no dramatic change in circumstances. About a week after the search, Miss Garagos and I flew down to Florida. Hold on. Everybody, don't nobody call till I go live. Hold on, y'all. My bad. I hit the mute button on accident. What's the last thing y'all heard? I think it's my bad, y'all. Blame it on my spastic finger. Okay, so we'll start back here. We then took the passports of several of his family members. I have in my hands Mr. Combs' passport plus 5, and we have had these for months. And we told them that we have had these for months. And this isn't a show. This isn't. Oh, they are just doing this so they can do better at a detention hearing one day. This is because we took this investigation absolutely seriously, as serious as one can take an investigation from the earliest stages. And we made what we think to be prudent decisions with Mr. Combs. We don't do these things without him. We are a team here, and we made these decisions together to show the government, to try to earn the government's trust. Truthfully, to earn the government's trust to say, hey, you know, back in March, we knew it was coming. We know it's coming. And when that day comes, we are going to want you to do 2 things. They haven't done either of them, but we wanted them to do 2 things. We want you to let him surrender. And let me just back up for 1 second. This got to be the cheesiest lawyer alive. The cheesiest. Bitch is cheesier than Kraft Velveeta. And I am not here to anything or to say anything controversial. Done on March 25th were the searches that were done on March 25th were very scary for people who had no involvement in this investigation whatsoever. Semi-automatic rifles were pulled on completely innocent people. You can see videos of the orange lasers on the chest of one of his children. That is an adult. You can see what seems to be an AR-15 at the head of another one of his that was also an adult. And the kids were marched out, and other people were marched out, not through the back of the house when there weren't dozens of reporters and a news helicopter, but the front of the house, so that these young, completely innocent people could be seen on the international news with handcuffed for 2 hours. Handcuffed for 2 hours? That's basic protocol for a search warrant. They found defaced AR-15s with fully loaded magazines on the property. That would indicate that they knew that people on the grounds were armed and dangerous. And seeing as how there is a lawsuit that one of those quote unquote children, quit trying to infantilize grown folk. Those are grown men. Those are his sons, but they are not children. They are his children, but they are not children. completely innocent, not involved in the investigation at all. One of them has their own lawsuit, and we did not want that to happen again. We took great pains so that that would not happen again. And that is one of the reasons he flew to New York. You want me? I know you want me. Here I am. Here I am. And he came to New York, and we told them so that nobody else would be afraid, so that God forbid, there be no tragedy by accident. Did nobody get hurt? Nobody got hurt. What is he talking about? Nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt during the execution of that lawsuit. So what is he talking about? Tragedy. Tragedy. The agents in this case are fine people. I have gotten to know many of them. They took good care of Mr. Combs last night, but you said, God forbid there be no tragedy by. So these same people that you're saying good people, you saying they'll have an accident and there'll be a tragedy. I want to say that things happen when people are afraid, and I didn't want anyone to be afraid. He didn't want anyone to be afraid. The case is about him, and here he is because he came here to face it. We were worried that he had an airplane because, of course, we are. Huh? Wait. Let me read that again. We were worried that he had an airplane because, of course, we are. You think your client guilty. Because the first thing that came into your mind when you knew he had a plane was, we got a runner. Take his passports. We're going to get paid for this one. Linda, list the jet. I can't remember when it started, but Miss Garagos and I said, you know what? We have to sell that plane. We have to sell that plane. And we started efforts. There's essentially a financial management company that deals with a lot of these sorts of issues. I barely own a car. I certainly don't own a plane, but you own a law firm. Okay. But it's hard to sell a plane, apparently. And we have been trying to sell the plane for about 4 or 5 months. We currently have a letter of intent, which I am told is a good thing when you are trying to sell a plane, so maybe we will actually sell it this time. But we are trying to sell the plane. Why are we trying to sell the plane? Because it's not our first rodeo, and we know it's better if he doesn't have access to a plane. The defense lawyer seems to use a whole lot of filler. So what's the deal with the plane at the moment? Luck would have it, it's being chartered. So I guess what happens with these planes is if you are not going to fly on the plane a lot yourself, a plane needs to be active or else it falls into despair. So folks charter it, and that's what's happening here. So some unrelated party is flying in the plane from Los Angeles to Teterboro Airport, I think landing in Teterboro Airport tonight. That's really a headache I need. The plane that I'm trying to keep on the West Coast is flying to Teterboro, but we have nothing to do with it. And the government, to their credit, hasn't the plane because they see we are trying to sell the plane, but bill and trustworthiness that we are trying to sell the plane. I don't know if temerity is the right word. I wouldn't be foolish enough, I think, to come before Your Honor one day. I didn't know it would be, Your Honor. I didn't know when this day would come, with us having this airplane, with us not collecting all these passports, without Mr. Combs coming to New York and saying, hey, judge, let him go. Huh? Word salad. Khalil, right? Yo. Wait, I have to keep taking pauses because my brain keeps stopping. It's like a little person in my head screaming. That's not right. This is a man that liked men and did not like women. That's where you get this degradation. Did you want to be Delilah or something? Is that what all this was about? Because you know, you could have remixed Diana Ross "I'm Coming Out" and wore a wig and everybody would have juked to it. You know, if you put the beat hard enough, everybody would have went with your foolishness, right, Diddy? You could have been a porn star. Take that would have been appropriate. But no, you was a hip hop mogul. He might as well, because he got it in the chamber already, Khalil. Diddy should have just been a porn star. That's it. Full stop. He'd have been one of the ones with the weird movies and peeping through people's windows and shit, jacking off. I mean, it's life. Ooh. Well, why would I do that, Mr. Agnafilo? What have you shown me? What trust have you earned in the eyes of the court? And the answer would be none. But we have, and the trust is earned, and we have earned it. You don't tell people how much trust you've earned. Because while the passports were turned in, while they trying to sell the plane and it's chartered out, Diddy was still having freak offs. Diddy was still dabbling in substances. Hey, Buccaneer. And that's why you see all this degradation of women. He beats them when they don't do what he wants. And then after the beating comes the money. Oh, you don't want to do it? Cancel her album. How many stars because they turned Diddy down? Huh? And got replaced with hot garbage. Because he was picturing himself in their position. And he was beating them because he could not be them. What a sad, sick, twisted world we live in. And my colleagues with the government, we couldn't win them over. This ain't a damn popularity contest. What is this lawyer smoking? Because he's smoking some crazy. I don't want what he got. Sound like a prevert talking about enticing a child. Hey, Carolina kid. Hey, Jeremy. What, Maximum? What in the butt? I said, what in the butt? Song break. You did it, Maximum. Y'all know how this go. Appropriate though. Video would have that would be awesome. Where is it? There it go. Oh goodness. Jose Potato. Diddy be like, this a banger right here. Y'all. Maximum did it. Blame it on him. Tasha, something wrong with you. I know, baby. I know. Now, before I read this next section, let's remember hold on. I'm talking about to enable chat. Hold on. Let me see something. Let me check and make sure the chat's still rolling because it did something silly. Restream acting funky, y'all. There we go. But remember that the DA said that they have over 50 witnesses and over a dozen victims. And he keeps, let me go ahead and keep reading. But coming back to the New York situation for just a second, one of the things that I noticed from the indictment is there is one victim in count two in the sex trafficking charge. There is one victim. One of the things that happened, and I will take my third step back, when the complaint of the civil case was unsealed around Thanksgiving last year, November of last year, there was a flurry of other civil cases, many of them. I think 12, 15. No, there wasn't. We don't do the civil stuff, Miss Carragos and I, but there is another lawyer who does. We were getting a new civil case every week, sometimes two a week. And what it seemed to us, and I am not disparaging anything, is people were jumping on a bandwagon of sorts. I think someone noticed, wow, Mr. Combs wrote a settlement. The settlement is confidential, so I am not going to say what it is, but it was large. Mr. Combs wrote a very large check to someone he was in a relationship with for 10 years, who is the person in count two. And I will get to that in a second. 10-year relationship. If he is writing checks, I want my check, and everyone lined up to get their checks. And we were getting an endless supply of civil lawsuits. Okay. Now, the problem with that is there was no flurry of civil lawsuits. There was Cassie. There's the Dawn one. There's the Joy Richardson one. That's 3. There's the one by Lil Rod. That's 4. Y'all help me out here. There's that one that got settled for 100 milli, but it got kicked out yesterday. That's 5. What is he talking about? So I had no idea when this indictment came down. I had no idea. Are we going to have one victim or are we going to have 12 victims? I didn't know. I was ready for 12 victims. I was happy to see there was only one. So it is not as though this indictment is somehow worse than we imagined. It's, if anything, better than we imagined and eminently manageable from our perspective. I won't belabor the point. I noticed in the pretrial services report, I think they say Mr. Combs should be detained because he has a criminal history. I don't know that that's right. He went to trial in a New York State court in 2001 and was acquitted, fully acquitted. And one thing that I think is noteworthy, and I would be derelict in my duties if I didn't bring it up, is that was quite a serious case, and he went to every court appearance. He went to every court appearance for the year or so that the case was pending, and he went to every court appearance. Repeating stuff 3 times ain't gonna make us believe you. This is the Umar Johnson of lawyering. I think in this case, silence is golden. First off, I wouldn't have been calling people talking about I can't say much because they might be listening in. Tasha, why you say it like that? Just wait, I'm gonna keep reading. We're gonna make it through this lawsuit today. We are at 1 hour and 34 minutes, so we are doing good time. We are on page 34 of 57, so we got 20 something more to go. Hold on for a minute. Let me go check on 17. Yeah. I'm back. Yes, I said Umar. Man, this is the Umar Johnson of lawyering. And then a jury of 12 New Yorkers, just like a jury of 12 New Yorkers one day will hear this case, acquitted him. So he knows what that's like. He knows what that involves, and it looks like he is going to have to do that again. Now, see, the problem I have with this is that there was an email sent the morning after Diddy got arrested for the first bail hearing, and the morning that Diddy got arrested, the morning after that, for the second bail hearing. And the DA lists off multiple things. So he acting like he's never read this document. He acting like the DA did not just stand there before the judge, before him, and say all the stuff he just said. Because it says that every police is still under investigation. They have not completed the investigation, and certain information has not been released yet because of him. He's a menace. Continue reading. He is going to have to do that again, and he is ready to do it again. And he is ready to do it again, and he came here to do it again. So I don't think he does have a criminal history in terms of felony convictions. I don't think he has any felony convictions. I think there might be a misdemeanor that goes back some period of time, but I think that's it. One of the other things that's in the pretrial services report that I just want to mention briefly, and this is mostly a confidential matter, so I don't want to get too much into it. One of the things that Mr. Combs is doing in New York is getting treatment and therapy for things that, most respectfully, he needs treatment and therapy for. And I say that as his lawyer, and he is getting that. So wait a minute. So, hey, Hada, the diddler got that lawyer out, Timu. So wait a minute. All this time that he been running around diddying, that he been running around diddling, he didn't have time to get treatment and therapy. But now, when his freedom is on the line, now is the time to go get treatment and therapy. Everybody know that's that stopgap to keep from having to go to jail. He want to be sent to rehab instead of no. If you've been going to treatment and therapy, that means you shouldn't have had Tootsie in your hotel room. You can't Tootsie slide out of this one, Diddy. Nope. Ain't nobody playing with you. And I noticed that in the pretrial services report, they had that as a reason to detain him. I don't see the world that way at all. I think everybody has flaws. I think that some of what the government's presentation this afternoon relates to is that Mr. Combs is not a perfect person. Not only was he taking it, but he was selling it too. That's the way I read it. That's the way I read what the DA said. Not only was he taking it, he was distributing, or he was having it distributed more correctly. Booty hole theory. Mr. Combs is not a perfect person. There has been drug use. There has been toxic relationships that I think were mutual in their toxicity, as these things tend to be. And this is where every woman head turned around like, what the fuck did you just say? And if he has seen fit at the ripe old age of 54 to really take things into his own hands and try to be better for the rest of his days, I think that is only a positive, only a good thing. Wait. So after his body starts breaking down and he's not as spry as his younger years, then it's time to go get treatment and therapy. Negro, please. If I was this judge, I would slap the taste out of his mouth, because this is so insulting to anybody with any level of intelligence. I don't see anything negative in that. And I think if there is one thing that we have seen as a country and as a justice system, is if someone wants to stand up for themselves to try to get the help that they need, we stand with them. We stand with them. We don't say, wow, you are trying to get the help that you need. We think you should be in jail now because you're trying to get the help that you need. So I appreciate the efforts of pretrial services and their observations and the hard work that they do and always do, but I very much disagree with that aspect of the report. I want to talk a little bit about the government's sentencing letter. I think many of the things that my colleague talked about in terms of obstructing justice is not actually obstructing justice. And let me name a few. My colleague talks about March of 2016. And this is an unfortunately fairly well-known event because somehow, we will never know how exactly, this hotel footage found its way to CNN and found its way to the rest of the world. I wonder how that happened. We didn't have it. The government had it. It got to CNN on a day that Donald Trump wasn't having any court proceedings, on a day that was sort of a slow news day. The news picked it up because CNN got this videotape, and we all saw it, and I saw it. Mr. Combs saw it. Mr. Combs issued an apology. Is that a wise thing? Was that not a wise thing? I don't know. He wanted to do it. It meant something to him, and he apologized. Yeah, after he dragged that girl name all up and down the street. Yeah, Hotter. Yep, Maximum, that's true. And that's what he did. Now, one thing that's important about the video, and since the government talked about some of the evidence, we have to talk about some of the evidence. What I think the evidence is going to show about this is like when you have 1,000-word essay and you trying to meet the word count. Dude is really giving me a headache, yo. Like, for real, for real. How many times you got to repeat the shit? Like, are you for real right now? Cuh. You okay? What I think the evidence leading up to this video being made is that two people are in a hotel room, Mr. Combs and victim number 1 from count number 2. Having looked through more text messages and emails than I care to, and I think the government would agree, one of the major issues in that couple's relationship at that point and at many other points is that Mr. Combs had more than one girlfriend, okay? And victim number 1 was looking through Mr. Combs' telephone when Mr. Combs was asleep and found evidence that Mr. Combs had more than one girlfriend. She was not the only one. She hit him in the head while he was sleeping with his own cell phone and then took his clothes. 2 bags as she runs into the hallway. That girl didn't have 2 bags. She ran out of that room barefoot with one little bag, if I'm remembering correctly. This lawyer know he can lie. In one of those bags is Mr. Combs' clothing, all of it. She has left him in a hotel with no clothes, having hit him in the head and asleep with a cell phone, which is why he comes out into the hallway in a towel. We don't believe you. We don't believe you at all. At all. Like, at all. Now, I am not going to comment on the video because my client commented on the video and we all know what we saw. But to the extent that the government says that this is somehow evidence of sex trafficking, it's evidence of Mr. Combs having more than one girlfriend and getting caught. Not only, he trying to gaslight everybody. He doing the same thing Diddy do. Oh, you didn't see what you saw. You saw what I told you saw. The video picks up when she's running down the hallway and he's chasing her. If she took his clothes, what would have stopped Diddy from calling his assistant and being like, yo, this bitch took my clothes. Bring me some clothes. Why would he need to chase her through the hotel with nothing but a towel on? Yeah, he was asleep all right. He was asleep when she snuck out the room trying to get away. And that will be shown resoundingly not just by my words, but by the written communication between those two people. And let me talk about this is a 10-year relationship. This sex trafficking is a 10-year relationship. We're in love. That will be made abundantly clear by the way other witnesses describe their time of how they broke up. They were in love, but Mr. Combs wasn't always faithful. There was someone else. One person, be more than one person. I said earlier that there was more than one person. This was a source of great hurt to victim number one. At the end of the day, there was mutual philandering, and victim number one ended up marrying the trainer that Mr. Combs got for her and had 2 children. That signaled the end of the relationship. You know what? This man is a piece of shit. This man is a piece of shit. He just sat up there and blatantly lied. She got with the personal trainer. The fuck? She married and had 2 kids with him and that. No. Her relationship with Diddy ended way before she ever got married to the personal trainer, before she ever had kids with the personal trainer. See how he keep trying to merge timelines and conflate shit? It's just like, wow, really? He is a whole piece of shit. It's bad enough that Diddy did it. And I understand that he is entitled to his day in court, but that shouldn't include his lawyer lying on people. This DA done came out multiple times and said this does not hinge on Cassie. We have multiple victims, and this lawyer keeps focusing on Cassie. Right, Maximum. Right, Jeremy. He tried to buy the video. And it's like you sitting up here crafting a narrative. Well, guess what? There was a narrative crafted when Cassie put out the lawsuit. She said she waited till he was asleep and tried to sneak out that bitch. And he woke up and chased her down the hallway and proceeded to do what we saw in that video. And it's quite insulting to everybody's intelligence that you're going to sit up here and say something different. Diddy sat up here and lied and said that never happened. She's a liar. This, that, and the other. That video came out and that trout mouth bastard was sitting up there talking about, I apologize. Yeah. Hold on. Let me refresh everybody remember memory. It's so difficult. Now remember this bullshit? That's why they keeping it secret, Maximum. Out of his own mouth, he says his behavior is inexcusable. So now why 6 months later, Leonard, bro, well, let me be accurate. May, June, July, August, September. 4 months later, your lawyer is sitting up here trying to make excuses for what you said was inexcusable. Nigga. Let me pull that back and let y'all hear it again. This is out of Diddy mouth. He's fucked up, y'all. Hit rock bottom, y'all. Full responsibility. Inexcusable. Full responsibility. Y'all hear that? It could. It's in the letter. If I can, I'll get to that after we finish this. But it's in the letter. They're not putting out a whole bunch of stuff because it's still they still actively investigating. They're still going through the devices, and they don't want the defense to tell Diddy, and then Diddy try to do what he do, diddle somebody. Well, apparently that professional help ain't helping because every time you get caught with something, you say you seeking professional help, but then later on you get caught with something else. Or maybe you're not seeking professional help and you're just telling us you are. Mm-hmm. Or are you paying somebody to give you drugs? You're rich. They do that. Conduct unbecoming. Right, man. 4 months ago, he said he was going to rehab, asking God for the Lord's mercy and grace. So why is this lawyer saying he came to New York to go to rehab in September? He said 2 weeks ago, so around the 3rd of September, the day I'll always remember. Oh, yes, I will. A better man every day. He ain't asking for forgiveness, but the DA say that he's still been participating in freak offs. Thank you, Hada. Snacky, snacky, snack, snacky, snacky, snack. He say he's sorry, y'all. He's sorry. That's what he say. But he has still been participating in freak offs this year after they said they was going to investigate him. What does that tell me? That tells me that he is not contrite in the least. Right, Maxwell. You know, when people work in the special crimes unit, they have to be rotated out periodically because of the sick stuff they see. This is sad. That will be made abundantly clear. And then remember, the prosecutor said that a lot of this behavior was performed behind closed doors. behind closed doors now. So how you gonna say, oh, we got somebody to testify how they was together when they was, hanging out? What does that have to do with it? He ain't gonna beat her ass in public. You think we dumb? That's what it is. He think everybody dumb. I can't with that. You really think everybody dumb? That will be made abundantly clear by the way they speak to each other, by the way other witnesses describe their time together, and by the circumstances of how they broke up. They were in love, but Mr. Combs wasn't always faithful. There was someone else, one person. Oh, yeah, wait, I read that part. At the end of the day, there was mutual philandering. Yes, that signal, they had been cheating on each other for years, but now she had 2 kids with the trainer, and that was the bridge too far that led to their relationship coming apart. See, that makes no sense. Yeah, it got denied, Jeremy. This is the transcript from the bond hearing. Ain't it though? She had been left Diddy by the time she got with the personal trainer and then married him and then had 2 kids. Her relationship was over with Diddy long before she married her now husband. Long before she ever had either one of her kids. Years and years and years later, when I submit victim number 1 realizes she had a pretty good thing for 10 years with Mr. Combs. They were in love. It was exciting. She was a recording artist. He had a recording artist. He had a recording studio. Things I don't know. I don't want to comment on her present life. I have no idea what it's like. Maybe things with the trainer weren't quite the same as they were with Mr. Very significant. If we are going to talk about the evidence in this case, hold on, wait. What about the fact that he suppressed her music career and probably been suppressing her music career since she left him? How about that? I mean, why you're glossing over all of the big facts that the DA that the prosecutor put down? You glossing over or just acting like they aren't there. And then you focusing on this minutia. Oh, they were in a 10-year relationship. So DV has to happen overnight. Look, if you got with somebody and the next week they busted your nose, you wouldn't still be with them. First off. Second off, Diddy basically cornered this girl into a relationship. He cornered her into a relationship and then proceeded to abuse her. And you gonna sit up here? Well, there was mutual philandering. No, she was trying to leave him. Right, Maximum. This is sick. This lawyer need to be disbarred. I'm sorry. He suppressed her music career. He held her music career over her head to gain her compliance. And even when she was compliant, he didn't push her shit. Because nobody could be bigger than Diddy. If he pushed her shit, then she'd have a way to get away from it because she'd have her own money. This is a great abuse of power. Not great as in good, but great as in big. She has her lawyer call Mr. Combs' lawyer, and in a recorded conversation for 8 minutes and 12 seconds, where her lawyer says, my client has written a book. It's about your relationship. She is not talking about sex trafficking, and she is not talking about sex crimes. My client has written a book, and she is going to publish it, but if you want to buy the rights, then you will have the exclusive rights, and she won't be able to publish it. And you know what? You can buy the rights for $30 million. A recorded conversation. The government has it. We have it. That conversation, I guess, didn't go so well for her and the lawyer. So the next thing we know, it's now November of 2023, and she has a different lawyer. This lawyer is not so interested in the intellectual property for $30 million. This lawyer is saying, I'm going to bring a civil sex case because the statute of limitations allow me to do that because there's been a change right here. That's when that law that Ronald Savage got enacted kicked into effect, that retroactive law, and that's when she filed that. But see, the thing about the book is, She writes a book. She goes to a publishing company. Diddy blocks it. So instead of doing that, go dead to him. Yo, if you want it. But see, in there, it says not talk about sex trafficking, not talk about sex crimes. So see, in the lawsuit, it's totally different. So I am not really here to embarrass you anymore to the tune of 30 million. I'm going to bring this civil sex claim against you. It's negotiated. Miss Garagos and I are not involved in the case yet because there is no criminal component to it, and that's significant to what I'm about to get to in a second. The case settles for an undisclosed and large amount of money, and then we have the torrent of other civil claims. Now, one of the things the government talked about, and they talked about obstruction of justice, is things that seem to have happened around the time that this lawsuit settled and other lawsuits were coming in. Certainly, Mr. Combs did not know about any Southern District investigation at this time period. I mean, absolutely nothing. And one of the important, my colleagues mentioned this case called LaFontaine, and they cited it to you. And I read LaFontaine just before we came today. And the difference in LaFontaine is LaFontaine was charged. LaFontaine was in jail. LaFontaine was released, and he was told, don't contact any of the witnesses in this case. So what does LaFontaine do? He gets released, and he starts calling witnesses. You calling witnesses before the grand jury can. That means you know you did something. That means you know you did something because you knew who to call. Like, bruh, come on, man. And for him to keep focusing on Cassie when the prosecutor says that they have over 12 victims and over 50 witnesses, is a smear campaign once again. They done dragged Cassie name. She should sue him again. I'd sue the lawyer and him this time. Mr. Combs doesn't even know that there is a criminal case. No one knew there was a criminal case afoot. So I called the prosecutors in March. My colleagues were saying these things happened in November 2023. There is no criminal lawyer involved. I am not involved. Mr. Combs has no idea that there is a criminal case going on. But let me hip y'all to something. As to why I started digging for the transcript. One, I know it's there somewhere. And two, the transcript is going to have what I saw in the news in the transcript if it's in there. The day after that lawsuit was settled with Cassie, Diddy started calling people. But he was saying stuff like, I can't talk on this phone because they listening in. So if you didn't know you were being investigated, why would you be telling people that on the phone? Mr. Combs has no idea that there is a criminal case going on, so I don't see any of these things as obstruction of justice. What I do see, looking at things in the light most favorable to the government, is there is a tremendously embarrassing event for Mr. Combs, not something he thinks is criminal, not something that's under investigation. What happened on March 5th, 2016, I know of no DA investigation because he covered it up. No police investigation, no federal investigation surrounding this video that we all saw from March of 2016. Now, those of you that's been here from the beginning of this live heard me read off where the prosecutor said he attempted to pay off the security guard. The security guard didn't take the bribe, but the video disappeared from the servers of the hotel. Therefore, when the police came to investigate, nothing was there. The fuck? But let's skip over the facts and go to Diddy Land. I don't want to go to Diddy Land no more than I want to go to Ottenland. Those are some dark, twisted, and scary places. The problem isn't that. The problem is it's embarrassing. It's illegal is what it is. You can't put head, shoulders, knees, toes, hands, feet, and forehead on a woman for no reason and hide the evidence and call it a normal damn day. It's not 1952 no more. It's not 1945 anymore. It's 2024. We don't do that shit no more. Point blank, period. If somebody saw a human beating a dog like that, it wouldn't be no excuse you could give them. No excuse. And we done all seen that video. This man need to be disbarred. I'm gonna be nice and say he got senile dementia, but I highly doubt it. He need to be disbarred at the very least. He beat that girl damn near to unconsciousness, and this lawyer sits up here and says it's embarrassing. And how is he so sure that victim number one is Cassie? And this is a man that's involved in very significant business deals and in very significant business transactions. And he can't afford, quite frankly, to be seen in a towel hitting a girlfriend. He is not trying to stop a criminal investigation. There is no criminal investigation. No, because he hid the evidence. That's why there's no criminal investigation, because he hid the evidence. He and this person had a mutually toxic relationship for quite a while. Well, it looked like she was running away from that situation and he was chasing her. You can give us whatever fucking narrative you want to about what was going on in that room, but we all saw with our own two eyeballs what Diddy did with his two hands. And that's all it boils down to. Shortly after the events that are depicted on the videotape that we all saw, Mr. Combs checked himself into a rehab facility because he is doing too many drugs and he has an unhealthy relationship and he knew it. And he had the wherewithal to try to go get help. Can we get some documents from this drug rehab stay that we never heard of before? I've never heard of Diddy being in. You know good and well that these reporters have reporters staked out at the rehab centers. They have them staked out at the courthouse. They have them staked out at the police station. And nobody saw Diddy's uniquely, oddly shaped head bopping into the rehab facility or the therapy building. Nobody. sent himself to rehab in 2016, still snorting Tootsie. Looked like it didn't work. But you expect us to believe that during the course of this trial, he's going to be able to get himself clean. Stress makes addicts use more, not less. Mr. Combs checks himself into a rehab facility because he is doing too many drugs and he has an unhealthy relationship and he knew it. And he had the wherewithal to try to go other person, I believe, got help around the same time. Now, why would it be depicted as a one-sided thing? There's 30 million reasons. There's 30 million reasons for this to be depicted as a one-sided thing. So you sitting up here telling me that Diddy never had to go to the hospital. Diddy never had to have doctors flown in for him. Well, not never, because Kim tore his butt up one good time. She got his butt with that I think it was a broken champagne bottle. She tried to slit that bit wrist. Oh, if she would have succeeded. And he seems to skirt around the fact that there was intimidation in all these cases. Remember the co-founder of Bad Boy, the actual founder of Bad Boy, that Diddy took his shares with a baseball bat. Remember him? Not only violence against women, violence against artists, violence against employees, violence against work competitors. He just violent and twisted. $30 million reasons for this to be depicted as a one-sided thing. One for each dollar that he was being sued for. These people didn't go to the cops. These people didn't go to law enforcement because she knew he'd pay them off. This woman didn't say, my goodness, I am the victim of sex trafficking. She didn't want to get a car blew up like Kid Cudi. I am going to go tell law enforcement. The first thing she did say is, I'm going to write a book, but for $30 million, you can buy the rights. That's the first thing she did. And the second thing she did is brought a civil suit. How you know she wasn't going to bring that anyway after she wrote the book? I mean, because she clearly said, you said that she said that she was not going to mention the sex trafficking and she wasn't going to mention the assaults in the book. But she wanted to give him first dib on the buying rights because he's normal for entertainers. That's basically. They'll give them the right to buy the book because they don't want to be seen in an unjust or whatever light. It might get released later. It might not. Boom. So when they talk about the evidence in this case being strong, I respectfully dissent. The evidence in this case is deeply problematic. They say they got over 90 cell phones. Do you think all that footage is of Cassie? I don't. Right, Maxima, but she didn't want to be with him in the first place. He used people. Look, the first time he told her she had an engagement, like she had some kind of show or something, had the folk print out flyers and everything, flew the girl down to Miami, and it wasn't nobody but her and him. Once he got her, he would never let her leave. Now tell me where the choice comes in that. She ran away and went to Cuddy. He blew Cuddy car up to make her come back to him. He sought her out. She didn't seek him out. He saw her at the club one night and was like, I want her. Maybe people watch too many movies that this stuff become immune to this stuff and just say, oh, it's everyday stuff. No. She wasn't at a Diddy party. It wasn't supposed to be a Diddy party. It was supposed to be her event. She was supposed to be hosted at some club or something. It Diddy like the party, but you gotta tell him no. We passed the hump, y'all. We on like 41 or 42 or 57. LeBron, this is not aging well. See, I can't. If y'all didn't know that mofo was high in the, I don't know what to tell you. He look high. High as he. So when they talk about the evidence in this case being strong, I respectfully dissent. The evidence in this case is deeply problematic. Now, this is not the time to litigate a very complicated criminal case, but the strength of the evidence is one of the factors that we are told we have to think about. So that's why I'm talking about it. In terms of what happened recently with this Don Richard lawsuit and someone named Kalina Harper coming out and saying what her experience was, this is the furthest thing from witness obstruction I can think of. A person brings a civil lawsuit. Another person from the same band that the person who brought the civil lawsuit was in, and the civil lawsuit is all about Combs was hard on us. He drove us. He made us work all the time. You know, he did a couple of inappropriate things. And as someone with the exact point of view of the civil plaintiff comes forward and says, in essence, and this is, I thought it was a soft, respectful statement. And the statement was, I am not taking away her experience. That wasn't mine. That wasn't my experience. She is entitled to her experience. I was there. That's not what I saw. That's not what I saw. That's two witnesses having divergent recollections of similar events. And I expect this trial is going to feature exactly that. But the problem with that is if she was saying something different before Diddy called her. That's why we have, so there was nothing wrong with that. That's why we have criminal trials and civil trials. I take the obstruction of justice seriously, obviously. And one thing I note, and my colleague said that there is nothing Your Honor can do to stop Mr. Combs from obstructing justice. One thing that I think is noteworthy, and my colleagues have investigated this case exhaustively for several months, and I give them credit for that, is that the only thing they can say since the time Ms. Garagos and I have been involved in this case is that another witness said something different than a first witness. And I am not even sure Dawn Richard is a witness in this case. I am not asking, but I don't really see how she would play a role. So I have to say, quite frankly, Your Honor doesn't have to do anything to make sure that he doesn't obstruct justice, because he hasn't done a darn thing since we have been involved in this case, and even taking everything that the government says as true, that's true. Huh? Here he go again. He politing y'all. Hold on, let me go grab some more to drink because I'm out. Drinking is thirsty work. Talking, not drinking. You ain't gonna go? It's about 4 o'clock now. By the time you get yourself up, it's gonna be 5 o'clock. I'm back. Woo. Right, Maximum. Okay, there's a section in the government's letter called Sex Trafficking and Abuse. And I want to talk about that because sex trafficking is a very serious crime and I want to address it head on. One victim, 10-year relationship. Once again, the prosecution has said they have 12 victims. One victim, 10-year relationship. It seems like what their theory is that as part of the way that these two adults wanted to be intimate together is that on occasion, a third person, a male, would come into their situation and have sexual contact with the woman. And from what I heard the government say, and Mr. Combs would not have sexual contact with the man. But you know, this male would come and have sex with the woman. All right. So Ms. Garagos and I have interviewed a half a dozen of these males. We have been as busy as the government has over the last 6 months. And I can represent to Your Honor, I have asked all the questions I could think of did anything ever seem remotely non-consensual? Was anybody too drunk? Was anybody too high? Did anyone express any hesitation? Was there the slightest inkling that possibly the woman wasn't consenting? No. I think my colleague spoke to some of the same people and I expect that they heard the same thing. One thing that I didn't see in the government's very carefully written detention letter that they never say anybody didn't consent. They don't say it. They suggest a lot of things. They suggest that because Mr. Combs is rich, because Mr. Combs took care of his girlfriend financially, they never lived coercion. They never lived together, and that's important for a reason that I will talk about in a minute. No, she didn't live with him, but she lived in a place that he paid for. Catch that? See how he's not exactly not telling the truth? See, he said she doesn't live with him. They didn't live together. They never lived together. No, he kept vacation that he paid for. Told her money. He controlled when she could work. He controlled where she lived. He controlled her hairstyle. Not suggested, controlled. She had no choice in these matters. Does that sound like a healthy relationship? Does that even sound like a toxic relationship? No, that sounds like domestic violence, physical abuse, financial abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse. She felt like she had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. But because Mr. Combs provided for this woman, because they were in love, he was in love with her and she with him. That's not why he provided for her initially. She was his artist. See how he trying to kind of blur the lines? She was his artist that he was romantically involved with. He also controlled her money and all the things I just listed a minute ago. Does that sound like an equal relationship? Does that sound like 50-50 love? No. And then after the mission to have a freak off, there's a spree. Just no. All of y'all that like that shit, go over there and leave the rest of us alone. All of y'all that think it's okay, go over there and leave the rest of us alone, okay? Thank you very much. He was in love with her and she with him, and that somehow this exerted some sort of control that overwhelmed her free will. And they certainly suggest that, but they are very good writers, and if someone didn't consent, they would have written that in the sentence, and they didn't. And it's because I think they are speaking to the same people we are, and no one is talking about lack of consent. Is it maybe unusual? I shouldn't say that. That's a judgment word. Does everybody have experience with being intimate this way? What? No. Is it sex trafficking? No, not if everybody wants to be there. When you pay a prostitute and take them from one state to another, that's prostitution is illegal. You should know that. You're a lawyer. I'm just saying. And when you take somebody from one state to another for those intents and purposes, that's sex trafficking. Don't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. If everybody wants to be there, the federal government, we are not all better off if the federal government comes into our bedrooms. They wasn't in bedrooms most of the time for them freak offs. They was in hotel rooms so they could trash them and not have to clean them up and pay for them, not have to fix shit. You noticed that, right? Most of those freak offs he went to hotel rooms for. But they had to end up paying damages because of the... Why wouldn't you just build a dungeon? That wasn't freaky enough for you, huh? Good grief. See? I mean, if I'm making sense, let me know. If I'm talking complete nonsense, also let me know. They don't do great there, and that's what's happening here. They are coming into this man's bedroom and they are making not just judgments, they are charging him with statutes that, as they said, could put him in jail for life. I don't think these things are going to pan out. I just don't think they are going to pan out. But notice how he left out the part about Diddy being the boss of Cassie. He left out that Diddy was her boss during this time that they was in this relationship. Notice that, right? They talk about violence in their bail letter, and they are talking about a kidnapping from 2011. And I know exactly what they are talking about because how would they know who to interview if these instances never occurred? See, they saying, oh, they're trying to reword it. No, any way that you blew up Kid Cudi's car, Kid Cudi's tampered with. Diddy sent somebody to tamper with Kid Cudi's car and it blew up. You know, it don't matter how you word that. He still blew up Kid Cudi's car. Diddy did it. Diddy caused it to be done. If they say you bop somebody on the head and you go call Tawana and be like, yo, they probably gonna call you and say I bopped you in the head, but you know that didn't happen, right? Girl, you know I ain't bop you in the head, but I had to go to the hospital for that. You remember you bopped me in the head. Girl, no, I didn't. I ain't bop you in the head. Remember, you lost your footing and fell and hit the concrete wrong. Nah, that ain't what happened because the police was there. Nah, you just remembering stuff wrong. It's because you hit your head. Man, I mean, come on. How much more obvious can this get? He calling the exact people that the grand jury was going to call to testify. He know he did something wrong. He was still paying some of these people off. But we just supposed to all believe that Diddy is no, Rick James was a super freak. Diddy just nasty. Let me alter this. There we go. This makes no sense. This is just who the person was who was allegedly kidnapped. Ms. Garagos and I interviewed her in Los Angeles. We took a statement from her. She certainly didn't use the word kidnapping with us. I won't get into what she did say, but let's suffice it to say there's another side to that story, and one day that other side might be told. Might be told. Might. But I'm thinking they have more than one instance of each thing because remember, he had that girl from, I think it was Danity Kane, and she had to call her daddy. Remember that? That wasn't in 2011, was it? Is that who he talking about? It's like, come on, man. It's like if they could show a paper trail to these people after they got you gonna get, oh, man, you going to jail? Yes, he jail. He in jail with no bail. In jail. He in jail with no bail. Whoa, Lord. Okay, firearms. Mr. Combs employs a professional security company that provides his security. He is at a point in his life where he has that ability, and he has the ability to employ a security company to keep him and anybody who might be in his home safe. Here we go with this word count shit again. Now, why would he do that? I don't think you have to necessarily be Sean Combs to need personal security anymore. I mean, what we see is that, people, homes especially, in Los Angeles and all the areas of Los Angeles, including where Mr. Combs keeps his house, and in Miami, responsible personal security is important. And that's what we are talking about. That's what we are talking about. Repeat yourself one more time. These are, he has nothing to do with how guns are kept in his house. Locations. The serial number was drilled through on all three of them. Yes, man, somebody did say firearms. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Springfield mayor seizes emergency power to help deal with threats after Trump's false claims about migrants. See how folk play. See, people play too much about shit they shouldn't play about. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. See, he started this shit once again. Now they up here trying to attack migrants in Ohio, in Springfield, Ohio, to be specific. Mm-hmm. I mean, what we see is that, people, homes especially, in Los Angeles and all the areas of Los Angeles, including where Mr. Combs keeps his house, and in Miami, responsible personal security is important. And that's what we are talking about. That's what... Yeah! I think I just reread it. These aren't his guns, He has nothing to do with how guns are kept in his house. And my suggestion to the court is, if the government really thought that these were his guns, they would have charged him with them, and they didn't. Look, they have not charged him with drug possession because the test results have not out. The results have not come back on that Tootsie Light powder. That's one. They have not charged him with the guns yet because the fingerprinting probably isn't complete. They just now brought him in last night. Did they fingerprint him before that? Did he have his fingerprints on record that was anytime recent? Or some damn near 20-year-old fingerprints that they probably wouldn't use? Historical fingerprints. Not like they're going to change that much, but still. State or provenance of these United States of America is an AK with a drilled out serial legal. Maximum, that's why he took his passport back in April. So he couldn't leave. Then he tried to sell his plane. The plane not being chartered. He finna squeeze Diddy for every dime he can get from him. But all of this stuff is offensive levels to so many. This stuff that's coming out his mouth, this drivel that's coming out of his mouth, is disrespectful to victims. We only saw one instance of what Diddy did to Cassie. We've heard of other instances. Didn't he beat Kim Porter till her eyeball popped out the socket? This ain't no toxic relationship shit. He was beating their ass and they was trying to fight him off them. That's called toxic relationship. But let him tell it. There's a part in the methods and means section of the racketeering count where they say there were firearms in the house. We know there are firearms in the house. We know there are firearms in the house because he has a professional security company that keeps firearms in the house. How they do it, whether they did it right, whether they did it wrong, whether they should have an AR, no serial number, not his gun. If it wasn't in his gun, why was it hidden in his bedroom closet with a fully loaded clip in both locations? The clip wasn't on the AR, but the clip was fully stocked with bullets, is what I mean. He had a drum at one and he had the clips. Hold on, let me pull up the what you call it, and I'll show you. Man's it, darling. I'm gonna need your assistance real quick. Oh, Lord. Hold on, it's loading. I think this is the one. No, this isn't the one. Hold on. I gotta pull it up off of documents again. I thought I downloaded it, but I guess I. Do no 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 no. That's the lawsuit against Diddy, the USA lawyers, in detention. I think it's got it on here. Okay, almost. Aha. Got it. Okay, firearms. The defendants and members of the enterprise, including the defendant's security personnel. Yeah, so genius, you're right. At times carried firearms, and the defendant himself carried and brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten others. Indeed, some victims were aware of the defendant's access to firearms. On one occasion, the defendant forced the female victim to carry a firearm on his behalf, and on another occasion, he pointed a firearm at a female victim. The defendant continues to have access to guns, including illegal firearms. In March 2024, during searches of the defendant's residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s, each with defaced serial numbers, as well as a large capacity drum magazine. As pictured below in a close-up image, oops, hold on. I hit the wrong button. In a close-up image, the serial number of one of the AR-15s is visibly bored through and obscured. That's one. 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were found in the defendant's Miami bedroom closet, stored broken down in parts, along with magazines that were loaded with ammunition, as depicted below. One of the AR-15s had a 10-round magazine loaded with 10 rounds of large caliber .223 ammunition, while the second AR-15 had a 30-round magazine loaded with 19 rounds of .223 ammunition. Now, y'all can see those pretty well. The pictures, I made it as big as I could. Let me see if I can bump it up one more time. Boom. Who calling now? Hello? Hello? Teehee. Right. And then if it's the case that security had them, why wasn't they stored in everybody's bedroom? Why just your bedroom, Diddy? A large capacity drum magazine loaded with 59 rounds of 223 ammunition was seized from the defendant's Los Angeles residence as depicted below. What you need all them bullets for? I know I ain't saying it right. I'm having a brain fart and I'm just going with it. In addition, 6 legally purchased guns with serial numbers, some of which were stored in gun safes, were recovered from the defendant's residences. Although these particular guns, both the legal and illegal firearms, were seized, their presence in the defendant's homes demonstrates that the defendant has access to and surrounds himself with both guns and ammunition. Likewise, even if the defendant were personally restrained by the court from obtaining new firearms himself, he could retain access to them through others. And it has 4 right there. So you go down to 4 down here, and it says certain of the firearms seized during the March 2024 searches were licensed to a current member of Combs' security staff. In addition to that individual, during the course of the charged conspiracy, Combs has employed other security staff members with significant criminal history, including violent crimes and firearm offenses. Okay, so that's that one. If we have time, we'll go back to that one, but I just wanted y'all to see the actual imagery and what was said about that. He ain't going to Georgia, though. Maybe Diddy can ask for a transfer so he can rule with polite. Brother, let me help you with your finances, because you see, you have to open up your third eye. Man, I ain't worried about all that. Commissary just came in and I got some baby oil. Wait, brother, I ain't on that type of time. Guard! So he hired security personnel with violent backgrounds. Him and R. Kelly go hook up for the remix. A couple of other observations. My colleague mentioned the R. Kelly case. R. Kelly involved children, flat out different, night and day. They're both trafficking charges, dumbass. And the reason it's night and day difference is because children, cannot consent. Wait a minute. I don't care. Yo. Could be in the PC cell across from Ghislaine. And the reason it's night and day different is because children, thank goodness, cannot give consent. There is no issue. He did not have to word that like that. There is no issue of consent when you are talking about a child. A kid is a kid and kids can't consent. End of story. Epstein children, Keith Raniere children, very, very different, very different. Children to adult, very different. Children to 10-year adult relationship, not even in the same ballpark. They're not saying he wasn't. comparing the actual crimes committed. He was comparing the charges. So where are we? Where are we is we have a substantial bail package. Some members of Mr. Combs' family are here. If you can just, there you go. They can come here on short notice. They are here. Who cares if they can come on short notice? Everybody have to go to court when court calls you. Nobody's special. They are here. They love him. They support him. I won't go through it because it's in our bail letter, Your Honor. We are talking about a $50 million bond secured by a $48 million piece of property. Is very significant is knowing that this day was less than a month ago. We saw that there was, I think, $18 million of mortgage left on the house in Florida. It's called Two Star. It was a terrible business decision for Mr. Combs and his people. We paid off the mortgage. Why? Because we knew this day was coming, and I wanted him to say one day I want to be able to tell the judge in the Southern District of New York that we have a $50 million bond secured by a $48 million house with no mortgage. So we paid off the mortgage because that is what it means to build trust. And we have done these things to build trust in a real and substantial sense. There is nothing about this as a show. No one makes bad financial decisions just for a show. Yeah, they do if it could save them from going to jail. It was important, and I told him this is an important thing to do. You want to show the court that you were taking it seriously. If we weren't taking this investigation seriously back on April 20th, we wouldn't have done it, and we did do it. If we didn't take this investigation seriously on April the 1st, we wouldn't have taken his passport, and we took his passport. We have been taking this investigation seriously each and every day since I have been involved in this case in March, and yet he flew here, and yet he came here. But wait, no, listen, Linda, listen. Oh, he sounds like a whole toddler. We have been taking this investigation seriously each and every day since I have been involved in this case in March, and yet he came here, and so we can trust him, and we can trust him because this isn't just the words of his lawyer. This is him undertaking action to show, Your Honor, that he is trustworthy, that he is a man of action. He is not going to obstruct justice. Okay, so what does the first thing a criminal do? Think of ways to get out of shit. Oh, they might try, they might say I'm gonna flee. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sell my plane, my passport. This is so genius. Cosmic. Yo, the universe be trying to tell us shit. He is not going to obstruct justice. He is not going to run away. One day I expect we are going to have a trial, and my colleagues from Southern District of New York, I know them well. They know me well. We will have a fair trial, and this will be adjudicated in the only way it possibly can, in a courtroom with evidence. And I expect we have substantial defenses to these charges, to every single one of them. And that is how Mr. Combs is handling this case. He is handling it head on, the way he's done everything else in his life. Didn't he run from Suge Knight? Didn't somebody pee on him? No, that was Drake. Was that Drake or was that Diddy? Or was it Diddy bodyguard that peed on Drake? I don't remember. Anyway, let's keep going. He's been a controversial figure. He's become a controversial figure. He's become sort of a punching bag for these civil suits, but he has also built these tremendous businesses from scratch, doing things that it's difficult for anyone to do. Yeah, like threatening somebody with a baseball bat to take their 50% stake in the company. Oh, did I say it out loud? My bad. I mean, Mr. Combs has overcome tremendous odds. His father was killed when he was 2 years old, grew up in Harlem, and through hard work, he has earned everything that he has gotten. He earned it. And one of the things that I submit wholeheartedly to your honor is that one of the things he's earned, and maybe the most important thing that he has earned in his life, and that's a lot, is he has earned this court's trust. He has earned this court. How you gonna tell the court how to feel? Okay, it was Drake. Okay. He fought Suge. He has earned this court's trust through his actions, the way he has always earned everything. There's no difference. And so I am asking your honor to release him on the very, very stringent and very demanding bail proposal that we have on our letter on page 2 and 3. And I am here for your honor's questions, but I have nothing else to say at this point. He took up most of the damn document. Umar 3 times. Miss Johnson, so the court, thank you, counsel. Miss Johnson, do you have any rebuttal? Miss Johnson, your honor, I will be brief. Just 4 brief points. Defense counsel has spoken extensively just now about evidence, his thoughts on the defendant's relationship and its operation in this investigation. But I submit to the court what he has not done is rebutted the presumption that the defendant should be detained. Did everything but what you was supposed to do. Guard. In terms of the obstruction points that Mr. Agnifilo raised, there does not need to be an existing investigation, and the defendant does not need to know about it. But we have evidence that he does know or he does suspect. 3 days after the settlement of that November civil suit, he is recorded speaking about how he is fearful of talking on the phone because it might be tapped. And he is using someone else's phone in that regard. We know, as of last February, knew about the existence of this very investigation. Not this February, just February 2023. And has continued since February to contact witnesses. He has contacted Miss Harper last week, as I mentioned multiple times. There are at least 2 other witnesses who received grand jury subpoenas this summer who were reached out to multiple times by the defendant. The court, I think what he was saying is those witnesses wouldn't necessarily have any insight into the behavior that's actually charged in the indictment. The witnesses who received grand jury subpoenas have firsthand knowledge of the behavior that's charged in the indictment. I think that I obviously haven't spoken to Miss Harper, but the allegations in Miss Richards' complaint certainly are of the same time period and relate to some of the same violent acts that the government intends to prove at trial. And just a brief note on weapons. I don't dispute that Mr. Combs has used armed security, but it is incredulous that armed security in a professional security company would use defaced AR-15s and store them in pieces in the defendant's personal closet. That is absurd. And finally, defense counsel spent a lot of time talking about the individual identified as victim number 1 in this case, and spent some time alleging that the government is not proceeding on a theory that there was no consent. And I want to clarify the record to the extent it was not clear based on the fact that count 2 is charged as sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion. We are most certainly proceeding on the theory of lack of consent. We are proceeding on a theory that victim one was forced and that she was coerced to participate in these sex acts. He beat her into compliance. That is coercion. It's like, is the water taking away people's brain cells or something? I'm confused. And the relevant question here today is not that consent question. The relevant question here today is the defendant's danger, and he is dangerous to the community. The court, would he not? He wouldn't be a danger, would he, if he only engaged in these kind of behaviors with consenting adult partners? Miss Johnson. Well, we do have the video which shows him assaulting a partner on video. That video speaks for itself. And abuse in long-term relationships are not mutually exclusive. And a single instance, even where a defendant has no criminal history, a history of domestic violence has been found sufficient to detain a defendant. And that's the Mercedes case, which is cited in our letter. And my last point, Your Honor, is that despite Mr. Agnifilo laboring over victim one, this is not a case about one victim. This is a case about multiple victims and dozens of witnesses who saw Mr. Combs' violence, who saw it during and in connection with freak-offs. Multiple victims have been abused in freak-offs. There's been violence, drugging, and coercion through the date of the indictment in 2024. Thank the court. Thank you, counsel. Mr. Agnifilo, he just gotta say something else. Shut up. Just shut up. Just very briefly, one of the things that we have been very transparent about, and we have been transparent in our conversations with the prosecutors, and I think I have even been transparent with Your Honor, Mr. Combs and this woman, I am not picking on anybody, it is the centerpiece of the indictment, had a mutually difficult, the whole relationship was actually quite good. There was a dark period for both of them, and it was mutual, and it was not something that Mr. Combs imposed on anybody. She was a successful recording artist in her own right. She was very much an adult. She had her own house. Mr. Combs paid for the house, but they didn't live together. He paid for the house, meaning he could evict her at any time he wanted to. If he got mad, he could tell her, get your shit and get out. Everything I bought for you, leave behind. And she has nothing. Hell. So to the extent that there's this sort of veneer of control, Mr. Combs is a busy, busy man. And one of the things he is busy doing, frankly, is having more than one girlfriend because he has a staff to control him, butt munch. So if this person wasn't controlled, this person was a willing participant in a loving though toxic relationship, and we would never say anything different. But that's our defense. That doesn't make it sex trafficking. Hold on, I done messed around and hit the button. And what we are doing, we are really, what are we doing? And what we are doing here, we are really sort of on a slippery slope because the government say, well, you know, she didn't consent because she was coerced. She didn't say that. She didn't say that until she stood to get 30 million from saying that, because that's what she needed to say to get it in under the statute of limitations. So where we are is he didn't have to settle that lawsuit. Nobody made him settle that lawsuit. And he settled that lawsuit in less than 24 hours. We woke up the next morning and that lawsuit was settled. Oh, y'all then. He did that shit. Whatever they say Diddy did. Whatever they say Diddy did. Because ain't no way you gonna close a lawsuit that fast unless she got more evidence. And see, knowing that, why would he let his lawyer sit up here? She need to sue him. She need to sue him. You can't lie on somebody for the defense of somebody else. They need to quit doing it. So where we are is it's a very serious case, and we don't say anything different than that, which is why we have a very serious bail package. But it's a case that he is going to defend, and he has shown that from the very first minute that he realized this was a case when I told him that in March. He still ain't addressing what he going back to the same shit. This has been a case. This has been a case. Has it? Has it? This has been a case. Oh my God, that's so profound. Hey, Maximum, Manzik, did y'all know this been a case? Leonard, bruh, you know this has been a case? So Genius, did you know this was a case? What is this remedial mess? We have done things a certain way since then. Are we going to continue to interview witnesses? Of course we are. We take pains to stay out of the government's way. We don't know who the grand jury witnesses are, and honestly, I won't get into the details. If I think they are talking to someone, I will pull up short. I don't want any problems. Do I want to speak? We both know pretty much everything, They want to talk to 50 people. We want to talk to the same 50 people. If I find out they are a grand jury witness, I make a strategic decision to not interview that person, And we have done that consistently for the last 6 months, So we are trying. We really are. We are trying to walk the fine. But why would you be interviewing anybody? Why wouldn't you let the folk do what they do? And then why are you trying to circumvent justice? Oh. That's a couple of cases. A whole palette. Oh my goodness. I can't with y'all today. Let's see, y'all keep leaving out the lube. 1,000 bottles of oil, baby oil, and lube. So I'm gonna say 500 and 500, but still. Oh my goodness. We are trying to walk the fine line of doing a responsible defense investigation in a very serious case and not running afoul of my colleagues with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I think we have done it for the most part, and we will continue to do it. And one thing that I hope Your Honor can see, because this is really the heart of our presentation, is Mr. Combs has done a lot of things to show that he is trustworthy. Lots of lawyers get up and say lots of stuff. You know what? He's done things to show that he is trustworthy. All he needs to know is what he can't do, and he won't do it. He will not do it. We will do it. This will be a hard-fought case. Very hard fought from both sides. Obviously means a lot to the prosecutors. It means an awful lot to us. It will be handled well. It will be handled with lawyers with a lot of experience who know the difference. And I think you should absolutely trust Mr. Combs. And I will go one step further. I'm going to ask you to trust me. I am with him. I am with him. I have my eye on him. I know where he is. We speak 5 times a day, and I will make sure that everything goes. He is with me. He is with me. It's hooked on phonic sweet pickles bust bullshit is this. Did I wake up in an alternate universe? I swear for God I did. And so I really want to thank Your Honor for all the time you have given us. The court, thank you, counsel. Is there anything further? Ms. Johnson, nothing from the government. The court, okay, thank you both for your argument. It was very helpful. I'm going to take a short recess and I'm going to invite the representative for pretrial services to join me in the robing room. Then it goes recess. It's about 3 more pages. Made it. This obliviate bastard. You know what? I can't with it. Lord, this is going to be a long trial. A very long trial. Very long, very long trial. Very long trial. The court, I want to thank counsel again for their helpful argument. In this case, I find that the presumption has not been rebutted and there are no conditions I can impose that would reasonably assure the appearance in court and the safety of the community. I make this decision based on all the information presented to me, which includes the arguments and information provided by counsel, which includes the letters submitted in the pretrial services report. You are charged with a crime of sex trafficking, so there is a rebuttal presumption in favor of detention. And my concern is that this is a crime that happens behind closed doors, even where pretrial services is monitoring. The alleged victims are people with whom there is a power imbalance, who are susceptible to coercion, not necessarily threats, but concern about losing benefits that they have been provided in the past. There are also indications in your history and characteristics that I think are a reason why the presumption in favor of detention has not been rebutted. Prior substance abuse and the fact that the alleged violence seems to occur hand in hand with times when you are not necessarily in control of your actions because of that substance abuse. Your lawyer asked me to trust you and to trust him, and I don't know that I think you can trust yourself. And I don't believe that counsel has the ability to control you, given the very significant concerns I have, particularly because of substance abuse and what seems like anger issues. I think the weight of the evidence is significant, given that the government has preferred that there are multiple witnesses who are saying that they have witnessed significant serious violence, and the danger, I think, is quite serious. There have been weapons around. There has been significant violence. And I also think it's significant that there has, I think, been a proffer of significant evidence of coercion of witnesses. Maybe not brutal coercion, but gentle coercion can be just as effective. That's why he changed his name to Love. There you go, Necro. I have considered alternatives such as monitoring, home detention, a significant bond as your counsel proposed, and I just don't think it's sufficient because so much of what would happen, the types of behavior we are talking about, happens behind closed doors. I appreciate the willingness of your family and friends, including by a willingness to co-sign a bond, for offering to be a part of the process. But in this case, due to Mr. Combs' own characteristics and own history, I find even with a co-signed bond, I can't reasonably assure that his return to court or the safety of the community or lack of witness tampering. A preliminary hearing isn't necessary, and I know there is a first conference. I believe that that covers it. Is there anything else for the government? Ms. Johnson, Your Honor, just one thing. I don't recall the court. I wanted to put that on the record. The court, yes, thank you. Ms. Johnson, Mr. Combs was arrested yesterday, September 16th at 8:25 p.m. The court, okay, counsel. Mr. Agnafilo, no, nothing from us. Thank you. The court, okay, thank you very much. I will put out the bail disposition sheet and we are adjourned. We made it, family. She did. Oh my. Tee. 3 hours, 15 minutes, y'all. I love y'all, but I gotta go. We finished the whole document. We made it. But I'll probably come back tomorrow and read some. I don't want to get too backlogged with this one. Like we got so backlogged with Melly, I don't even want to touch that shit no more. But we gonna have to revisit Melly sometime in the future. But I'm in Mississippi right now. Later this week, I'll be in Georgia. And we're going house hunting. But for now, this is Chipsy's Treehouse, where it's always swinging. And